morning, Year 5. Welcome to a brand new week of home learning, our last week of home learning before we all get to be together again. Okay, so you've only got 5 more days of learning at home, and you get to be back with all of your classmates in our classrooms. That is super duper exciting, and we can't wait to see you. But for now, we have still got 5 days to go. So we are going to start off with a bit of a reading lesson for you today, so we can read a little bit more of our Alice in Wonderland books. So hopefully now lots of you have these at home because you came to collect them at the resource collection. If not, you just need to follow along with what I am reading. Okay, so what are we doing? We're using our magnifiers and learning some new vocabulary. How? By retrieving old learning. And why? So we can understand the events of chapter 3 and describe Alice's personality. So as you've probably already realised, Alice in Wonderland is a little bit of a wacky book, so some of the bits can be a little bit hard to understand. So what we're going to do today is we're going to read together, stopping along the way to kind of answer some questions and unpick a little bit, so that we can be really clear on kind of what's happening in this chapter. And then we're going to have a go at creating a bit of a mind map at the end as well, looking at what we know about Alice so far. So let's get started then. So to rewind your brains, to refresh you, and as well just in case you missed our Zoom on Thursday where we read chapter 2, I want you to see if you can use these pictures to talk through the story so far at home. So you don't need to do this with anybody. This can just be you at home talking quietly, or if there is someone at home that you can talk to about it, then that's also great. Okay, but it's not necessarily a requirement. You are going to use these pictures to see if you can use them to help you describe what's happened in the story so far. So we're summarising using our yellow magnifier what has happened in our story so far. Pause the video once you've had a go, come back and we'll have a look together to remind ourselves what has happened. Wonderful. Hopefully you've had a little go at talking this through using the pictures at home. So we're going to start from this one up here. We have got the white rabbit, and we can see he's wearing his waistcoat, and he has also got his pocket watch. And this was who Alice spotted running across the garden, and she decided to follow him. And she followed him down the rabbit hole. And she fell a long, long way down the rabbit hole, but somehow she landed at the bottom and she was unharmed, and she landed in a hall full of doors. And in this hall of doors, all of the doors were locked. However, there's a glass table with a key on, and this key unlocked this little door that we can just see down here that was only 15 inches high. So she had to work out a way of getting out of that door. Then she saw a potion that made her shrink to become very small, and also a cake that she tried which made her very, very big. So Alice kind of went through getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and bigger and bigger and bigger. Okay, then in chapter 2, which we've just read together, she eventually shrunk back down, but then suddenly she found herself swimming in a pool of her own tears. Okay, so it was all very wacky, it was all a little bit confusing. We didn't really know why Alice suddenly in a pool, but it turned out she had cried so much because she was so frustrated that she couldn't get out of the hole that she had created a pool of her own tears. Okay, again, we know that we're in a very wacky world, don't we, in Alice in Wonderland. When she was in the pool, she also met this guy here who is a little mouse, and I think we're going to learn a little bit more about him today. Okay, so that's a recap, a summary of what's happened in our story so far. Today we are going to read chapter 3. So if you want to take your Alice in Wonderland books for me, if you have them, and you're going to turn to page 33, which is chapter 3, and it is called A Caucus Race and a Long Tail. Okay, so whenever you're ready, you can play the video and we're going to read. Now, following along with me at home then. So I've got my Alice in Wonderland book here. I've also got some kind of slides that are going to help us to visualize what's happening. So I'm going to stop as I'm reading as well to kind of talk through some things and to show you some things as well, picking up on some of that key vocabulary. So they were indeed a queer-looking party that assembled on the bank. The birds with draggled feathers, the animals with their fur clinging to them, and all dripping wet, cross and uncomfortable. straight away we can hear this kind of old-fashioned language. They were indeed a queer-looking party that assembled on the bank. Okay, so this word's queer. This word queer means strange or odd, and here they all are assembled on the bank. I wonder if you can think of any synonyms for this word queer that we might describe this kind of odd-looking bunch of animals that have assembled on the bank. Fab, we're going to carry on. The first question, of course, was how to get dry again. They had a consultation about this, and after a few minutes, it seemed quite natural to Alice to find herself talking familiarly with them, as if she had known them for all of her life. Indeed, she had quite a long argument with the lorry, who at last turned sulky and would say, "I am older than you, and must know better." And this Alice would not allow without knowing how old it was. And as the lorry positively refused to tell its age, there was no more to be said. So a lorry is one of these birds. It's a little bit like a parrot. I think it might be this one. At last the mouse, who seemed to be a person of authority among them, called out, "Sit down, all of you, and listen to me. I'll soon make you dry enough." They all sat down at once in a large ring, with the mouse in the middle. Thinking about now this question as I am reading. Alice kept her eyes anxiously fixed on it, but she felt sure she would catch a bad cold if she did not get dry very soon. "Ahem," said the mouse with an important air. "Are you all ready? This is the driest thing I know. Silence all round, if you please." William the Conqueror, whose cause was favoured by the Pope, was soon submitted to by the English, who wanted leaders, and had been of late much accustomed to usurpation and conquest. Edwin and Morcar, the Earls of Mercia and Northumbria. Okay, so we can see here the mouse, just like lots of characters have done so far in this book, has kind of gone off on a little bit of a tangent. Okay, he started talking about William the Conqueror. Okay, so again, we're a bit lost now. We're kind of a bit confused. Why is the mouse talking about William the Conqueror? Okay, he's gone off on a bit of a tangent now. "Ugh," said the lorry with a shiver. "I beg your pardon," said the mouse, frowning but very politely. "Did you speak?" "Not I," said the lorry hastily. "I thought you did," said the mouse. "I proceed. Edwin and Morcar, the Earls of Mercia and Northumbria, declared for him, and even Stigand, the patriotic Archbishop of Canterbury, found it advisable." "Found what?" said the duck. "Found it," the mouse replied rather crossly. "Of course you know what it means." "I know what it means well enough. When I find a thing," said the duck, "it's generally a frog or a worm. The question is, what did the Archbishop find?" The mouse did not notice the question, but hurriedly went on. "Found it advisable to go with Edgar Atheling to meet William and offer him the crown. William's conduct at first was moderate, but the insolence of the Normans. How are you getting on now, my dear?" it continued, turning to Alice as it spoke. "As wet as ever," said Alice in a melancholy tone. "It doesn't seem to dry me at all." Okay, we're just going to skip ahead one and then come back to the mouse. But when Alice said "as wet as ever" in a melancholy tone, this is a new word, some new vocabulary. And if we are feeling melancholy, we're feeling kind of very sad, sorrowful, kind of a bit sorry for ourselves as well. So Alice is feeling a bit sorry for herself here. So her tone is reflecting that. Let's have a little think then. What do we know about the mouse now? So we've got this mouse and he's telling us this story about William the Conqueror. What opinion do we have of the mouse? What do we think his personality might be like? Pause the video now and have a little think. What's our opinion of this little guy here? This is taken from the film. What's our opinion of him? Okay, so we can start to form a little bit of an opinion, can't we? So on the previous page, 33, okay, it said, "Mouse, who seemed to be a person of authority among them, called out, 'Sit down, all of you, and listen to me. I'll soon make you dry enough.'" Okay, so that tells us that Mouse is a little bit bossy and he's kind of in charge of the rest of the animals. Okay, he also said he asked the lorry, didn't he? He said, "Are you speaking? Did you speak?" Okay, so again, maybe that shows that he's quite kind of in control. Again, he's a little bit bossy. He's saying, "Did you speak?" A little bit like we might at school. Okay, he is in charge of the situation and he's quite authoritative. Okay, meaning he's telling the other animals what to do. Wonderful. So we're turning over now onto page 35. In that case, said the dodo solemnly, rising to its feet, I move that the meeting adjourn for the immediate adoption of more energetic remedies. Let's break this sentence down a little bit. So in that case, said the dodo solemnly, and here we can see as well a picture of the dodo and Alice. And in this, you have this picture in your book, but it's in black and white. This one is obviously a colour version. So solemnly, and this means in a formal and dignified matter. So the dodo is quite kind of formal. He's not kind of saying in a chatty way, he's saying it in kind of more of a serious way. Rising to its feet, I move for the meeting adjourn, for the immediate adoption of more energetic remedies. Okay, so this word adjourn means kind of to break off, to end the meeting. So if court is to adjourn, then it means it ends or has a little break. Okay, so he's saying, I think we should have a break from this meeting for the immediate adoption of more energetic remedies. That means that we're going to try something different to help us all get dry. So, speak English, said the eaglet. I don't know the meaning of half those long words, and what's more, I don't believe you do either. And the eaglet bent down its head to hide a smile. Some of the birds tittered audibly. What I was going to say, said the dodo in an offended tone, was the best thing to get us dry would be a caucus race. What is a caucus race? Said Alice. Not that she much wanted to know, but the dodo had paused as if it thought that somebody ought to speak, and no one else seemed inclined to do so. Why, said the dodo, the best way to explain it is to do it, and as you might like to try yourself some winter day, I will tell you how the dodo managed it. First, it marked out a race course in a sort of circle. The exact shape doesn't matter, it said. And then all of the party were placed along the course, here and there. There was no 1, 2, 3 and away, but they began running when they liked and left off when they liked, so it was not easy to know when the race was over. However, when they had been running half an hour or so and were quite dry again, the dodo suddenly called out, The race is over, and they all crowded round, panting and asking, who has won? Okay, so we've got something now called a caucus race, and these are some pictures of the caucus race I found from the film, and this is just a drawing that someone's done, just to kind of help you imagine what's going on here, because it's quite a lot to get our heads around. So a caucus is actually a meeting of a political party or political members, but to be honest with you, I don't know why it's called a caucus race. I think that's just kind of part of the wacky world that Alice in Wonderland is part of. Okay, but a caucus race is basically, sounds quite chaotic to me. Okay, it sounds a bit kind of not very well organized. No one knows when to start, no one knows when to stop, no one knows who the winner is. Okay, can you remember why the caucus suggests the dodo suggests a caucus race using your retrieval? Why did he suggest they do this? Okay, so the dodo suggested that they did this to help them all dry off after they had been in the pool of tears. Okay, and here we can see them having their race. Wonderful. So finish the race now, and they're asking who's won the race. This question the dodo couldn't answer without a great deal of thought, and it sat for a long time with one finger pressed upon his forehead, the position in which you usually see Shakespeare in the pictures of him. While the rest waited in silence, at last the dodo said, Everybody has won, and all must have prizes. But who is to give the prizes? Quite a chorus of voices asked. Why, she, of course, said the dodo, pointing to Alice with one finger, and the whole party at once crowded round her, calling out in a confused way, Prizes! Prizes! Alice had no idea what to do, and in despair she put her hand in her pocket and pulled out a box of comfits. Luckily, the salt water had not got into it, and handed them round as prizes. There was exactly one piece all round. You must have a prize herself, you know, said the mouse. Of course, the dodo replied very gravely. What else have you got in your pocket? He went on, turning to Alice. Only a thimble, said Alice sadly. Hand it over here, said the dodo. So a thimble, sorry, I should go back actually. A comfit is a sweet that they would have had probably kind of more in in history in the past, and it's usually a nut or a piece of fruit that's been coated in sugar. And a thimble is something that you use to put on the end of your finger if you are doing some sewing, and it protects your finger from getting stabbed by the needle. Okay, so it's kind of some random prizes, really. Then they all crowded round her at once, while the dodo solemnly presented the thimble, saying, "We beg your acceptance of this elegant thimble." And when it had finished this short speech, they all cheered. Okay, so again, we're hearing that word solemnly. Solemnly means quite seriously, in a quite formal way. Alice thought the whole thing very absurd, but they all looked so grave that she did not dare to laugh, and she could only think of, and as she could not think of anything to say, she simply bowed and took the thimble, looking as solemn as she could. Okay, again, we've got some new vocabulary here, so let's have a look together. So Alice thought the whole thing very absurd. I can't say this word. I'm struggling with my words today. Absurd. Okay, so absurd means kind of very strange, ridiculous. She can't really understand it at all. She can't get her head around it. But they all looked so grave. Now, we would think of this word as in a grave where someone is buried in a graveyard. However, grave also has a different meaning as an adjective. And if you are quite grave, you are quite serious. Okay, so they all looked so grave that she did not dare laugh. So Alice was being quite polite here, wasn't she? Because she thought it was very strange, but because they all looked so serious, she thought she probably shouldn't laugh. Okay, she didn't really know what else to do. She didn't really know what to say either. The next thing was to eat the comfits. This caused some noise and confusion, as the large birds complained that they could not taste theirs, and the small ones choked and had to be patted on the back. However, it was over at last, and they sat down again in a ring, and begged the mouse to tell them something more. "You promised to tell me your history, you know," said Alice, "and why it is you hate C and D," she added in a whisper, half afraid that it would be offended again. "Mine is a long and sad tale," said the mouse, turning to Alice and sighing. "It is a long tale, certainly," looking down with wonder at the mouse's tail, "but why do you call it sad?" And she kept on puzzling about it while the mouse was speaking, so that our idea of the tale was something like this. And we can see here we've got kind of a bit of a play on words, because we've got these two words, tail and tail. And Alice is getting a bit confused because Mouse is talking about his tail, okay? And she's looking at his tail and thinking about, why is your tail sad? Can we remember what these two homophones mean? Okay, what's the difference between a tail, T-A-L-E, and a tail, T-A-I-L? What is the difference? Do you think you can tell us? Okay, so hopefully you remember then that a tale spelled like this is kind of like a story, and a tail like this is like an actual tail. So here we've got the mouse's tail. And we can see, can't we, that in our book, this way, okay, the mouse's tail, which is over here, is actually written in the shape of a tail. So we've got a bit of a play on words here. We've got the tail, which is the story of the mouse, okay, but it's also in the shape of a mouse's tail. Okay, so we've got that play on words of tail and tail there. So I'm going to read you now the mouse's tale. Fury said to a mouse that he met in a house, "Let us both go to law. I will prosecute you. Come, I'll take no denial. We must have a trial, for really this morning I've nothing to do," said the mouse to the cur. "Such a trial, dear sir, with no jury or judge, would be wasting our breath." "I'll be judge, I'll be jury," said cunning old Fury. "I'll try the whole cause and condemn you to death." Okay, so that's Mouse's tale there, his story. But again, we're a little bit confused. He's talking about a court case, someone saying to him, "I'm going to take you to court, I'm going to prosecute you, so I'm going to judge you guilty of a crime." We don't really know who this person is or what crime they are judging them of. Okay, again, that's Mouse's tale there. We're going off on a little bit of a tangent, a story about Mouse's life. Okay, so we're going to turn over them. "You are not attending," said the mouse to Alice severely. "What are you thinking of?" Attending, he means listening to the story, paying attention. "I beg your pardon," said Alice very humbly. "You had got to the fifth bend, I think." "I had not," cried the mouse angrily. "And not," said Alice, always ready to make herself useful, and looking anxiously about her. "Oh, do let me help you undo it." I shall do nothing of the sort, said the mouse, getting up and walking away. You insult me by talking such nonsense. I didn't mean it, pleaded poor Alice, but you're so easily offended, you know. The mouse only growled in reply. Please come back and finish your story, Alice called after it, and the others all joined in chorus. Yes, please do. But the mouse only shook its head impatiently and walked a little quicker. What a pity it wouldn't stay, sighed the lorry, as soon as it was quite out of sight, and an old crab took the opportunity of saying to her daughter, Ah, my dear, let this be the lesson for you to never lose your temper. Hold your tongue, ma, said the young crab a little snappishly. You're enough to try the patience of an oyster. Okay, so the mother crab who we can see here in this picture is saying to its child, its baby crab, she's saying, let this be a lesson to you, don't get angry like the mouse. But the young crab has replied, she's a bit annoyed, and he said, well, you are quite annoying, mother crab, so that's going to be quite difficult. You're really trying my patience. I wish I had our Dina here. I know I do, said Alice aloud, addressing nobody in particular. She'd soon fetch it back. And who is Dina, if I might venture to ask the question, said the lorry. Alice replied eagerly, for she was always ready to talk about her pet. Dina's our cat, and she's a capital one for catching mice, you can't think. And oh, I wish you could see her after the birds. Why, she'll eat a little bird as soon as look at it. This speech caused a remarkable sensation among the party. Some of the birds hurried off at once. One old magpie began wrapping itself up very carefully, remarking, I really must be getting home. The night air doesn't suit my throat. And a canary called out in a trembling voice to its children, Come on, my dears, it's time we're all in bed. On various pretexts they all moved off, and Alice was soon left alone. I wish I hadn't mentioned Dina, she said to herself in a melancholy tone. Nobody seems to like her down here, and I'm sure she's the best cat in the world. Oh, my dear Dina, I wonder if I shall ever see you any more. And here poor Alice began to cry, for she felt very lonely and low-spirited. In a little while, however, she heard a little pattering of footsteps in the distance. She looked up eagerly, half hoping that the mouse had changed its mind and was coming back to finish the story. Predictions then, as you can hear the pitter-pattering of footsteps. Who might it be? Who might it be? Have a little think. Right. Okay, so it could be the mouse, or it could be someone else. Maybe it could be the white rabbit back again. We haven't seen him for a little while. Fabulous. Right, so we've done our reading for today then. So we have read the first 3 chapters of Alice in Wonderland. Okay, so now we can start to think a little bit more about Alice, because I think we know Alice pretty well now. Okay, we've been through quite a lot with her. We're going to have a start to think about kind of Alice's personality and what she is like. Because I think she's quite a complex little girl. She's not very straightforward. She's got kind of lots of different elements to her personality. So I want you to just rewind, remind yourself of the events that she's gone through and the events from today, where she's had the race, been part of the Caucus race and spoke to the mouse as well. Okay, what type of person do we think Alice might be? What have we learned so far? So I'll go first. When I was thinking about this one here and her kind of chasing the rabbit, following the rabbit, we started to think that Alice was quite curious, didn't we? She was quite curious about kind of what the rabbit was doing, but also she wanted to find out more about where the rabbit was going. Okay, and then when she fell down the rabbit hole, what kind of impression did we get there? What did we infer about Alice's personality? I wonder if you can remember. Okay, so maybe you're thinking that she was quite brave, okay, because she wasn't very scared, was she, when she fell down the rabbit hole? Okay, we're going to be using kind of all of this today then to think about what we've learned about Alice so far. So we're going to be creating a little bit of a mind map, another graphic organizer for us all to organize this information about Alice. And the way that we are going to do this is we are going to write Alice in the middle of our page, okay, and you are going to put a little circle around where you've written Alice. Remember to write the word first and then draw the circle. Okay, so do that for me now then. I would advise that you do this on lined paper, okay, and then that way you can use your lines to write on as well. So you're going to write Alice in the middle of your page, and then you can play when you're ready to go again. Fabulous. Now, coming off of Alice, then we're going to be starting to think about what adjectives might describe Alice's personality. So we can really kind of summarize here what we have inferred about Alice's personality so far. Now, not very often in the book has it said Alice was intelligent or Alice was curious. Okay, instead, it's shown us how Alice is those things. So we're going to use a mind map to show that then. So here then I've gone for my first point. Well, I think Alice is quite an intelligent little girl. Okay, so I've drawn my line, and on my actual line, I've written intelligent. Now, that's not enough for me to just write that I think that Alice is intelligent. I need to give the reader some evidence as to why I think that. How have I come to that conclusion? So I was thinking, well, how do I know that Alice is quite intelligent? And the first one was that she knew when she was falling down the hole lots and lots of complicated words. So, for example, she knew longitude and a latitude, and these are quite big words for quite a little girl to know. Okay, although she did say sometimes she doesn't necessarily know how to use them properly, the fact that she was still using them show that she's quite intelligent, she's quite clever, she knows all of these big words. Okay, also I remember there was a little bit where Alice was using her logic in chapter 1 as well, because she was saying that if there was a train station, if she was going to the beach, then there'd be a train station, so she'd be able to get home. She was quite good at using that kind of logic and justifying what was going to happen next by kind of using those clues around her. So I've also written, she has lots of knowledge of the world. Oh, so this was a bit different to what I forgot what I put into here. Okay, so this is also true. So she has lots of knowledge about the world. So, for example, she knew that if she was to go all the way through the world, she would get to Australia and New Zealand. Again, she's quite intelligent. She also showed that logic when she was working out that she could get the train home. So she was thinking of ways to get home. There's lots of ways that that Lewis Carroll has shown that Alice is intelligent. Now, you're going to have a go then at creating your own mind map all about Alice and her kind of personality features. So you're going to draw a line coming off your mind map. On that line, you are going to write personality adjective about Alice. So, for example, curious is quite a good one. I'm sure you might all go for that one. So you're going to be writing it on the line to show that this line is going to take you to reasons why we think she's curious. Then from that, you can draw as many lines as you like, okay, with examples of how you know she's curious. So, for example, a really obvious one for this one might be that she followed the rabbit down the rabbit hole, or that she actually went down the rabbit hole, didn't she? She did slip a little bit, but she was peering pretty far into the rabbit hole. Wonderful. I'm going to set you off now then to do that. So thinking about what type of personality Alice has, what do we already know about her? Thinking about everything that's happened so far in our text. So don't forget you can use this to guide you if you're kind of trying to remember the events and trying to remember what Alice did. Okay. If you are still finding that a little bit tricky because you're not sure kind of what type of person Alice is, you can carry on watching the video now. I'm just going to give you a couple of kind of personality adjectives which might help. If you're happy and you want to think of your own, pause the video now and go and have a go. Wonderful. If you would still like a few more ideas thinking about our personality adjectives, I just wrote a couple, not a couple, I wrote a few on our next page here. So I wrote curious, brave, polite, and friendly. Okay, so I wonder if you can use these words then and to look at your Alice in Wonderland books and remember what's happened so far, and if you can come up with any examples of times that Alice has shown these characteristics, these personality traits. Remembering that you're still going to present it in the same way, so you're drawing your line, then you're writing the personality adjective on the line, and then you're thinking of times when Alice has shown that trait. So, for example, if you are looking at polite and friendly, that might be to do with her interaction. So the last chapter where she met the dodo and the mouse and the rest of the characters there. So that might be a good place to go for that. Okay, so there are your personality adjectives. Of course, if you think of any more, you can use those. Okay, but that's just to get you started, to get you thinking about what type of person Alice is. Wonderful. Fab. Right, hopefully then you've had a go at this, and hopefully now you have a mind map that has a few different lines coming off it, kind of referring to the different personality adjectives that we think might describe Alice and the reasons why we think that, the evidence from the text as to why we think that. Please take a picture of your mind maps because we'd love to see them. And please keep hold of these as well because these are going to help you later in the week when you start to describe Alice as well. Okay, well done for today. Like I said, make sure that you send us your work on your portfolio and we will see you tomorrow. Goodbye.